are live. Hello and welcome to the Dr. Elisa Show here on KUHS Denver, the stream. I'm so excited. So let me just remind you who you're listening to, and then I'm going to jump right into my amazing guest today. But I'm Dr. Elisa, and the PhD in Psych is what the doctor is. The show is about inspiring a renaissance of spirit in you and every single listener. And actually, the show inspires me, and my guests inspire me. I also want to remind you that this show is spiritually multilingual. And so I just want you to open your mind and not get hung up on any of the language that we use, but to just get the intention and the words that, if the words don't inspire you, the meaning behind them will. So just let yourself flow with that. I'm doing something a little bit different on this show. My guest is going to be on for half an hour, and then we'll have time to chat one-on-one after that. So it should be just an amazing hour. Thank you for joining me. And because I'm so excited, I don't want to spend any more time talking about me. So as you know, I always have a guest on who's inspired me. And I'm so lucky, I can't even believe it. So I was reading this book called Joyful, right? And just, you can tell by the cover, it just looks so happy. And I got swept away in the very beginning where the author talks about colors don't clash, they vibrate. And that was it. I was sucked into the book from that point on. And so believe it or not, Ingrid Fetell Lee is my guest today on the show. Her book has inspired me. Her notions around moments of joy, not looking for happiness, not finding our soul's journey, but these powerful moments of joy in our life just woke me up over the last month, I think. And so Ingrid, thank you so much for being on the show. I cannot believe I get to talk with you.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
So what I would love to know is your version of your journey from design school to all of your design experience to this world of experiencing and researching through personal experience joy. Can you just take us on that journey a bit?
Well, I love the question because I never set out to study joy. I set out to study design. I was in my first year of grad school at the Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, and I was at a review. I had lined up all the things that I had created over the course of the semester on a table, and a bunch of professors were critiquing my work, and one of the professors said, "Your work gives me a feeling of joy." And I thought, well, that's weird, right? Because we're always taught that joy is this fleeting, this evanescent feeling. It's not something that we can see or touch. Certainly, we're taught that money doesn't buy happiness, that we're not supposed to see joy as coming from material things. So how did these physical objects, a cup, a lamp, a stool, how do those things actually bring joy? And I asked the professors this question, and they couldn't answer it. And so that is what really started off my journey.
Wow.
And it's been now more than 12 years that I've been studying this connection between the physical world around us, the sensory things that we interact with every day, our homes, our offices, our cars, all those things, and our inner landscape, and in particular this emotion that we call joy.
That I'm just capturing some of those words. So one of the things that fascinates me about your journey, I'm an academic, right? I was an academic dean for 25 years, okay? So your research was not what academics would consider research. Your research was life experience. You go to this amazing hotel, you just go to these places. Was that spontaneous? Was that part of your design background, that you had to experience joy in specific places to be able to understand it?
Well, I would say a couple things. First, my training is really as an ethnographic researcher. So someone who goes into people's homes, who goes into specific settings and studies you know, the interactions between people and design, the things that people say and the things that maybe people don't say. And part of that is immersive experience. Part of that is talking to people in different settings to see how they feel, how they behave. And then I think there's another piece of it, which is really drawing on the rich body of research that's happening in labs all around the world around this sort of disparate emerging science of environmental psychology. So understanding how our surroundings do actually influence our attitudes, our behaviors, our emotions. And that is something that is really, you know, it's happening in lots of different places. It's not coalesced or organized, and so bringing that together to be able to see that is, I think, was a lot of my work, was looking at, you know, a study that someone's doing on symmetry over here, and then another study that someone else is doing on the way that nature influences behavior in housing developments over in another part of the country. So really starting to create a patchwork of those different scientific studies, the academic research, alongside the physical, the visceral experience of space.
I love that. Which leads me into this thought that in your book, you mention a book that is one of my favorite books of all time, My Side of the Mountain. And I think you're the only other person I've met who's read that book, right? But that experience had a great deal of effect on you. And was that maybe the start of it? So can you talk about that experience of being able to wander out into nature and how that started to frame your thinking?
Well, sure. I mean, for me, My Side of the Mountain, not only was My Side of the Mountain a formative book, and for those who don't know the story, it's about a young boy named Sam Gribley who does befriend forest creatures, and it's told, I think what's really special about the book is that it sounds kind of like a Disney-ish story, but the author, whose name was Jean Craighead George, was my neighbor. And the thing about Jean was raised by naturalists. She was herself a naturalist, and Jean's understanding of the natural world was rich and deep. And so the way that she talked about nature to children was in a very realist way, as opposed to in a kind of sanitized or fantastical way. And so when she talked about some of the things that Sam Gribley was doing to survive in the forest, she was very much describing what someone would actually do, how to identify berries, how to build a fire, how to actually tame a falcon, because both of her brothers were falconers, and so they actually trained birds. So she knew about all these things, and so she never talked down to children. And so I think my experience of that book was not only the book, but also enriched by having this author live across the street from me and being able to wander over to her house with the things that I would find in the woods and have her expand out my understanding of those things and experiences. So if I found a nest, she would help me understand what birds had made a home in that nest and what would we do with the hatchlings, how would we help them survive, right? So I think that for sure my experience of that book and the corresponding experience with Jean really shaped my understanding of my surroundings as this place of beauty and discovery and wildness, and that has stayed with me my whole life.
And I get that in your book with your notions of joy and where we find that. I want to dig into the book in a minute, but before that, I just want to ask you: do you find that people resist joy? That there's some sort of, well, especially now in the last couple of years, right? Like we have to be serious. I think somewhere in the book you say something about why do serious things have to look serious? But do you find that people resist it in some way, or that we're disconnected from it?
I think that's a huge societal question. The answer is absolutely. One of the things that might help is to pull apart happiness and joy. I do think this sometimes helps because we use those words interchangeably in our culture, but from a scientific perspective, happiness is usually considered similar to subjective well-being. It's something that we measure over time. It has to do with a more conscious appraisal of how we feel about ourselves and our lives. It includes many different factors, like how we feel about our work, whether we feel like we have a sense of meaning and purpose in life, how connected we feel to other people. So those are all the things that go into this complex equation of happiness. And sometimes it's hard to know, am I happy or am I not, right? Especially now, you know, maybe my work is going really well, but hey, I haven't been able to see my friends in a really long time. It's hard to do the things that give me a lot of meaning and purpose in my life. And so maybe I feel disconnected from those things and I don't feel so happy right now. But joy, on the other hand, is much simpler and more immediate. So when psychologists use the word joy, what they mean is an intense, momentary experience of positive emotion. And this is something we can measure through direct physical expressions, things like smiling and laughter and feeling like we want to jump up and down. It's something we sort of feel as an energy in the body. And I think that distinction can be really helpful because if happiness is how good we feel over time, joy is about right now. It's about this moment. And if we think about those little moments, one of the reasons that we resist them is because they seem trivial. They seem inconsequential. So we associate happiness with big milestones, with getting the promotion, getting the raise, buying the house, meeting the partner. We attach so much weight to those big things in life. And yet, in the process, these little moments of joy often get lost in the shuffle. And in fact, we postpone joy. We say, you know what, I probably shouldn't look at that funny YouTube video that my friend sent, which is a bonding opportunity, which is a moment to have some laughter, to have release, right? We say that we feel guilty about doing those things. And instead we think, I should just keep plugging away toward that promotion or toward that goal. Same thing in our language around how we talk about money, right? There's so much demonization of the avocado toast or the latte or whatever, when really there are a lot of systemic factors that are influencing, you know, our money woes, especially for millennials and younger at this stage, that we've attached guilt to pleasure, to joy. We've made it seem like it's an indulgence, these little things, when in fact they can be the building blocks of our well-being if we let them.
Such a fascinating notion that we have trained ourselves to become serious, because serious means success. So I'm thinking about your first chapter where you talk about energy and color, and I was an academic dean. I was expected to wear gray and black and mauve and navy blue, and I show up in like turquoise with blue streaks in my hair, and you know, I mean, and managed to last, and it's because it gave me joy. Can you talk about color in that? Because I love how you say, wear that pink dress, or put pink and orange together, or just let's explore that a little. How do we become so judgmental about color?
Right. Well, it's interesting because there is this tension. I think it's sort of it sort of has a negative feedback loop, right? So when we tell ourselves that the color is unimportant, it doesn't really matter. So if it doesn't really matter to our well-being, why not wear the serious thing so we can go out and be successful? And then we do that for a while, and then we forget actually how it made us feel to wear those colorful things, until we maybe see a kid wearing some mismatched outfit that they picked out of their closet because their parents actually let them choose their own clothes, and they're having so much fun wearing it, and we think, God, I'd love to feel that way. Why don't I feel that way? Why do I feel so disconnected from it? Well, we've cut ourselves off from a lot of the things that reinforce joy in our lives because they seem trivial, or because of exactly what you said, this sort of bias that joy is childish, joy is trivial, and color is probably the biggest signifier of that. We know that, for example, bright colors are associated worldwide with joy. We see it in children's drawings. Children use bright colors to represent happy, joyful scenes, and they use dark colors like black and brown and purple to represent angry or sad scenes. So we know that there is this kind of continuous association with brightness. Now, colors themselves may vary in meanings across cultures. So some cultures may have associations with red. Red might be lucky in one culture and dangerous in another culture. So we have variations in the specific hue, but the brightness of color, the saturation of color, when we see highly pigmented color that is very light and reflective, that brings joy the world over. And you can see it in festivals as well, all over the world. Festivals have bright, vibrant color. So when we wear those things, we put them in our homes, we're sending this signal to our brains, to our unconscious minds, that that we're sort of primed for joy. One of the theories behind the evolution of this preference, why we have this attraction to color, is that it is associated our color vision evolved in part to help our primate ancestors find ripe fruit and young leaves in the treetop canopy. So on a very deep level, when we see color, it's a sign of energy, it's a sign of life. An environment in nature that has water, that has sunlight, will usually be bright and vibrant in color. An environment that has no water, right, that has none of the things that we need to survive, tends to be dark, it tends to be dull, sort of flat colors. So color has been a proxy for our ancestors for many, many generations of finding a place where we can thrive. And so it's no wonder we're attracted to it. But we do have a lot of cultural baggage around it as well.
Yeah, you talk about how white and like stark colors, right? White and black make something appear clean. And cleanliness is a value, which I'm not knocking, right? But so that we've moved some in some of the more minimalistic design notions to very simple, basic colors, right? And then those are great if you can fill them with wild pillows, and right? But we seem to have edged into no, keep it simple, right? As opposed to let your expression come out in this.
And I think that we owe a lot of that baggage comes from some deep roots, right? So colonialism, I think, is a big cause that we don't often see in our daily lives. But back in Europe, when white people, predominantly white people, were going out to try to conquer certain places and extract resources from certain places and subdue indigenous populations, often what they would do is think of themselves as different, as other from the people and the places that they were trying to colonize. And part of that meant if there was color, if there was vibrancy, if there was expressive emotion, the colonizers would say, you know what, we're more elevated, we're more restrained. And so restraint and repression, both visually and emotionally, became a way of expressing, of being above, of putting oneself above. And so I think that has, we've now seen, obviously, the consequences for the peoples who were colonized were devastating. And there's nothing that can replace those losses. But the populations, these Western populations that many of us are descended from, also have baggage from that, where we are afraid of color because, and we don't even know why, but it's just been sort of part of our culture for so long. And so actually starting to question it and say, where did it come from? Where did these biases come from? Why are we so afraid of color and embellishment and adornment? And what racism, what ethnocentrism underpins it, so we can maybe start to unlearn that, get rid of it, and start to embrace color for the joy that it brings.
I love that connection that we are trapped in a past history of aligning color with sensationalism, or a lack of elegance, or a lack of refinement. And so the
primitiveness, I think, is a big piece of it.
That's a great word, that you're primitive if you like to wear turquoise and purple, and right, that those colors, you make sure you wear something appropriate. And so there's that sort of putting us in the box of appropriateness, which brings me to one of your other notions, which is about freedom, right? And you don't talk about this in a way that some people think. Get rid of all of your stuff and don't have commitments, but more a freedom that is a design element, right? Create negative space, subtract. So how how does that help us with joy, that sense of openness?
Well, freedom is one of the things that, it's one of the deep, sort of values that is associated with joy. When you see kids moving freely, there's such a joy, and you can feel it if you sort of picture like a wide open field and what you would do if you were turned loose into a field,
right.
Cartwheels or rolling down a hill, or there are certain things that we do in these wide open spaces that make us feel like we can breathe easier. It's the same thing when you go from like being in deep winter to go to a tropical vacation, and you sort of imagine shaking off your coat, all the
right.
layers, your feet, your toes can move. So there's something in free movement that's joyful, and it's always been joyful. But what does that mean in terms of how we bring that into our lives? Well, I think one thing is bringing in elements of nature into the indoors, because we live in these kind of enclosed boxes, which don't have any of the sensations that we have out in nature. So nature is not silent, first of all. There are all sorts of little sounds of birds, sounds of insects, and that soundtrack of nature actually makes us feel calm. Some researchers point out that actually the only time it's really quiet in nature is right before a storm. It's actually sort of a scary time. So having having sounds of nature, having textures of nature, also even just airflow. I mean, if you think about it, in a hermetically sealed indoor environment, we don't have a lot of changes in humidity. We don't have a lot of changes in little fluctuations in airflow and temperature. So those things can bring joy. And then, as you were saying, space. So we often think about freedom in terms of decluttering and getting rid of stuff. But one of the things that achieves is that it creates more negative space, more open space in your home. And the way that I like to think about it is on a continuum, because another of my aesthetics of joy is abundance. So we have energy, we have freedom, we have abundance. And how do abundance and freedom play together? Well, you may be someone who finds more joy in what I call density, right? Environments that have more things closely packed. You might be someone who loves like a library where the shelves are fully lined with books, who feels best when they have art in a gallery wall, lots of pieces of art on the wall. Or you might be someone who is more on the freedom side of things, who wants one very serene piece of art on a wall, right? And lots of wall space to just sort of breathe. So thinking about where you fall on that density spectrum, I like a lot of density. Maybe you're more abundance minded. I like more spaciousness. Then you might be more freedom minded. And it doesn't mean you necessarily have to get rid of all your stuff. Maybe the answer is closed storage, where you put things behind, behind a closed, behind doors, so you can feel that you have that negative space, but still have the things that matter to you. It's not so much about quantity; it's more about how you actually cultivate open space in your home.
So that your book is really, as opposed to here's what brings you joy, right? This is a dive in deep and have a joyful experience, and then replicate that, right? That's where you're heading with people? Is that right?
Yes, and I love the way you put that. I think it's very much one of the things I say over and over and over again is that joy isn't just something we have to find. It's something we can create. It's something we can create for ourselves, for others, for those we love, for those in our communities, and to me, that's an incredibly empowering thing, because if we think about joy the way it was put to me when I was a child, joy is something that we just find. It's spontaneous. It's like luck. It's like, having joy is like luck. If you find joy, then great, and savor it, and that's wonderful, but you can't make it. And to me, as a designer, the notion that I can make repeatable moments of joy, that by putting a certain piece of art on a wall in my home that I see every morning, I have created a repeatable moment of joy for myself. Or by painting a bench bright yellow, I see that every morning in my bedroom. I have that repeatable moment of joy when the sun hits that bench and it lights it up. I have created that for myself. So that's something that we can do. We can notice it, and because we're more sensitized to it, but we can also start to build more joyful lives.
And then give ourselves the freedom of what gives me joy. I just booked a night in a treehouse in and you talk about tree houses in your book, so I
do.
just feel all the synchronicity between us. My side of the mountain, you love tree houses, right? Bright colors, and that on some level it's completely frivolous to go to somewhere else, not that far from my home, to just spend a night in a treehouse. And on some other level, I know I'm going to be in joyful anticipation of that day for several months now, because that's how far out I had to book it. I'm so cognizant of your time. So here's what I'd love to ask you. What do you wish you'd been asked? What would be a great question to ask you about your work in joy?
Oh goodness, I don't know that I have anything. For me, I think you've asked me all of the things that I'm most passionate about. So I don't know that I have a specific question. Is there something you are still would love to leave your listeners with?
Yeah, I'd like to know what still inspires you, since my tagline is inspiring, and I know prisms and wind chimes and elves and donuts. I mean, you've got all these things that still bring you joy, but what still inspires you to do this work around joyful design is what I would call it, but maybe instead of design thinking, a design feeling. What still inspires you? And you got 3 minutes, and then you need a hard stop. I know.
I think that what inspires me is that, so a lot of people have said to me, this is kind of obvious, and yet we don't really talk about it. Right. And I always think that's an interesting observation, that yes, I don't disagree. It is obvious. I mean, to say that like polka dots make you smile, or to say that confetti, brings joy, it's obvious. And yet, I think because we see it as, to your point, frivolous or superficial, we underrate its value. And so, what I'm really trying to do is reclaim that for people. And so, the things that inspire me are, one, the fact that even though it's so obvious, I'm still always surprised when it works. And so I'll give you an example. So my husband and I were painting furniture. We painted this bench bright Kelly green, and we had to take everything outside to do it. And so we were bringing the bench back into the house, and we settled it into the entryway, and we went out again to bring something else in, and we came back in, and my husband said, it brings me so much joy, this green bench. He's like, it works. And I was like, well, yeah. But then I was like, oh yeah, it does work. I'm still surprised that it works, because it seems so obvious and so silly, and yet it really does make a difference. And now that I've experienced living in a home that is so joyful, and now we're in a new home, we're trying to transform that one, I'm hyper aware of that. So that is very inspiring to me, that it works, and that I get surprised by when it works. And then the other thing that inspires me is the things that people do with this. So I get emails from artists. I mean, it seems like several emails a week from artists who have discovered the work and allowed themselves to be freed from the critiques that they received in art school, that their work was too colorful or too light or too silly. Designers, creatives, architects, and that is the most inspiring thing to me, to see what people are doing with this work in their own creative practice, in their own communities, because that's where it's really going to have an impact.
I think with that, then people shift the entire world of design away from gray, brown, black, white, minimalist, to something that feels just elegant and rich and embracing. So
And alive.
So Ingrid, we are like at the moment, I know I need to let you go. I can't thank you enough for this time with you. And I bet another half hour we're still going to be talking about your book. And so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a great rest of your day.
Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, that was amazing. If you are listening, and hopefully you were sort of awestruck by this first half hour, this is the Dr. Elisa Show on KUHS Denver, The Stream. Oh my gosh, take a deep breath. If you are just joining me, you're going to have to catch that half hour on replay. I just was speaking with Ingrid Fetell Lee, the author of this book, Joyful. It is about the power of ordinary things to bring us joy. And I want to play off of that topic for the next half hour of this show. So hopefully you got that. And the other thing is I do have the Facebook site up, and it looks like I can see it, which is good. I'd love to have you join me in a conversation about joy. And here's where we're going to go with this. I'm not going to walk you through the book because I want you to read the book, buy her book, listen to her TED Talk, do her, she's amazing. Let's dig in on a slightly different focus, okay? And I'm playing with technology over here. So, astrologically, there are some joyful things going on this month. And it's also the month of Valentine's Day, which for some people is joyful, and for some people not so much. So, what's going on astrologically? Well, to begin with, Kabbalistically, we are in the month of Adar on the Jewish calendar. And that is a month designed for laughter and joy and actually trickster events, right? Why? Oh, because it is a month where we celebrate the holiday of Purim. And this month is then where things are turned upside down. And what I find is how interesting that this month of Adar, have lightness in your life, have fun, let's be joyful, let's rejoice, have joyfulness again, is matched with the holiday of Valentine's Day, which should be joyful, but for so many people it has become so stressful. So what I'm hoping here that you might want to do is post in the Facebook chat on Dr. Elisa Show, and let's see if you want to join me in a conversation. And so let me just start with sort of notions of joy around this month. So to begin with, like I said, it's the month of Adar. We also have the planet of joy, which is Jupiter, has moved into Aquarius, which opens up sort of startling experiences and new ways of seeing things for us, which is also kind of fun. And this holiday. So what I'd love to know from everyone here is, and I'm just doing some sort of technological refreshing here so I can see if you're commenting on things, is what about this month brings you joy, and how can you find it? So let's just start with Valentine's Day. What I have found in this month is that so many people feel pressured to have a Valentine's Day. Right? That's what they want. They're like, you're supposed to have a lovely time. You're supposed to be in love. You're supposed to do something special. And somehow Valentine's Day has turned into yet another buy someone the perfect present. And we've let go of this ability to say, hey, it's a very cool holiday about love. Why don't we just follow that? And so what I have found is that there are men who hate this holiday because they feel pressured. There are women who hate this holiday because they feel like they've been left out somehow. And then there's, whatever, wherever on the spectrum you are, non-binary, LGBTQ, it doesn't matter, but that you either feel that you're pressured or you're left out of this holiday because it's about love and not about joy. So let's reinvent this. Let's just play with this and reinvent this holiday, this whole month. What would happen if you gave yourself a promise of a joyful experience on a regular basis around in this entire month, but didn't hook it to being in a relationship or doing something correctly, or making sure that everything in your life was done according to a plan. Because I do believe that it is the planning and the need to have it a certain way that takes the joy away. So let me give you an example. When I had a full-time job where I actually went to the office, Valentine's Day would roll around, and the question everybody would ask each other was either, what did you get? Or what did you give? But usually, because I'm a woman, it was, what'd you get? What'd you get for Valentine's Day? And somebody would show off, oh, I don't know, a new bracelet or a new pair of earrings or whatever, or the huge bouquets of flowers were delivered all day, and there's absolutely not one thing wrong with that. However, I think what it did was it talked about joy or love in terms of a purchase. And for those of us who were just trying to have a lovely day, it could feel judgmental, right? You could almost hear people when you say, oh, nothing special, we're going to have dinner together later in a glass of wine. Have them go, oh, almost like, how sad that that's all you got, that nothing special happened for you. When in actuality, being with somebody you love or care about is profoundly special. What if you didn't have someone? One year, I had an old friend who happened to be in town, and we hadn't seen each other in, I don't know, decades, and he said, hey, let's have dinner together, and it turned out it happened to be Valentine's Day, and we happened to have dinner together, and it was fun. Nothing romantic, but just fun, and we laughed about it, that we had a date for Valentine's Day, because it was just filled us with a sense of joy. So I'm just kind of wondering, I'm looking up at my screens here to see if there's any comments there. I'm not seeing them. Would love to have you comment on the Facebook site and see what this month, how do we switch it from the pressure of Valentine's Day to a joyful holiday, in fact, a joyful month. Yeah, I had my birthday recently, and somebody wished me happy birthday a week after, and they said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I'm late. I said, this is marvelous. I get to celebrate my birthday for at least a week, maybe 2, maybe a whole month. Why not? Why is it only the day? Why can't it be the whole time where I feel immersed and just surrounded by people wishing me good things? So I want to redefine that. Have you noticed with prom, for example, and I'm not sure if it's still happening, like, I don't know, prom is happening, but the last several years, people would set up for prom, kids would set up for prom, and they would go as a group. So instead of trying to make sure you had a date and it was the right person and the stress, maybe half a dozen, or an odd number, 7 or 9 or whatever, people would go out to prom together. And everybody would dress up and have dinner, and everybody was included, as opposed to having to pair off in a one-way definition of what relationship or love or dating or what prom actually means. And I think what we've done is, instead of giving ourselves permission to experience joyful moments, we've codified what joy should be. I have a puppy, and for those of you who have puppies, you know how stressful puppies can be. And at the same time that they are stressful, they're hysterically funny and joyful, because they're just babies and they're just experiencing the world. They're not out to hurt you. They're just experiencing the world as new. And yet, what we've done is decided that we have to be the alpha dog, which is ridiculous. It's not what dogs do. Or we have to be training in a certain way that that dog acts like a police dog would, or a perfectly trained seeing eye dog would. And those are wonderful things. Those are great. But what about simply the joyful experience of having a relationship with a dog or a cat or whatever your type of animal is? Why do we have to put rules and boundaries around everything so that we're only allowed a taste of joy now and again? And I've been thinking about this a lot, not just because I read the book, but because it seems that social media, and it has highlighted this in our lives. How many degrees do you have? You know, I didn't actually enjoy getting one of my degrees. I enjoyed getting the other one of my degrees. Joy wasn't part of that. Where isn't that what it should be? A joyful exploration into something you're interested in? And yeah, I get it. There's, I was an academic. There's got to be rules, and there's got to be boundaries, and there's got to be ways you earn this degree. But why can't we have a joyful experience while doing it? Yes, there has to be boundaries and rules about going to work because right? I mean, things have to work and communities have to work together. Yet it seems to me, in my personal experience, as someone who loves to wear turquoise and has turquoise streaks in her hair, and sometimes purple, and sometimes I think I'm going for dark blue next, like marine blue maybe. Why does that mean I'm less professional? Why does the joy I have at having crystal balls, and I have one with me today, I have my rose quartz crystal ball because of course, love Valentine's Day. Why is that considered creepy unless you also know that I'm a geologist? And so, then it's okay because then you have minerals. What if I feel inspired when surrounded by things that appear metaphysical? What if that brings me a moment of joy? Why would that then be judged less than professional? Why would a dozen people going out to celebrate Valentine's Day together be somehow not about joyful love? And I have found that where I really get smacked in the face by this is social media, where I feel like I'm being pushed to join the popular table. Now, I gotta tell you, I was never at the popular table my entire life. Ever. I wasn't even close. I wasn't even at the second or third popular table. I was an outlier forever, right? And I'm not just, many of you I know are. And yet, social media says if I want to market myself or sell myself or have more of you listen to my radio show, instead of giving you an hour of joyful experience, what I need to do is go on social media and push and drive and make sure that you know I'm important, that I'm popular. So I hope what you're finding in your life is not a definition given to you by somebody else, but a sense of something that just feels full inside of you in a moment. In this book by Ingrid Fetell Lee, she talks about lots of things. We talked about color and freedom and abundance, but she also talks about transcendence. Those moments when you're just sort of lifted out of yourself. So, I used to ski really hard. I was a pretty good skier. Nothing that would ever go to the Olympics, right? Watching those, and those are almost terrifying. But good, solid. And I'd push myself and leave the day exhausted. And then I got bored, believe it or not, and I didn't want to push harder, but I started going up, getting off the lift, and standing there and looking at the scenery. And I now ski at somewhere small, where people do this all the time. We get off the lift and take a deep breath and just look at where we are and the joy of the view Not how many runs am I going to get, and did I do a double diamond, and how fast did I get down. None of that. Just the joy of where I am. And now, when I waltz, just kind of smooth down with, I'm okay. I can get down that mountain. What's important now is, did I get down smiling? Did I get down enjoying? Did I get down not worrying about how much I spent, or did I get enough runs in, or am I still good and strong, or whatever? But was this just a fun, joyful experience? And then, when I'm done, when I have a run and it's no longer joyful, can I just get off? Can I just ski for 2 hours and go home? Without having to justify why I like skiing for 2 hours and going home. And so, I think that in this conversation with Ingrid Fetell Lee that I had in the first half of the show, we sort of see that we have institutionalized what should make us happy and set it in concrete. You should be happy if. And if that doesn't make you happy, maybe you need to go talk to somebody, because it should make you happy. If you have joyful moments that, I love walking in the rain, and I have a puppy, and I watch her joyfully splash in puddles. And when I don't think about, oh my gosh, she's getting dirty, I have to wash her, but simply let her splash, I can laugh. I can be part of that joyful experience. I'll give you another example. I'm not seeing any comments. And so it's quite possible that your comments are up in Facebook, but I'm not seeing them. And so what I'm going to invite you to do is to go to Facebook at some point, go to the Dr. Elisa show, or go to Elisa Robin on Facebook, and just comment. Share your thoughts with me. Really so much want to hear your thoughts. And just so you know, for every future show, this is going to be a bit more the format. Probably a guest, but then us. Just us talking. And to do that, you got to talk back. So more and more opportunities for you to share your thoughts on Facebook, and for you to actually share your thoughts by text message into the studio. What brings you joy? And let me give you another sort of example and an encouragement. Many of you know I just finally got published on Amazon, my second novel, Dark Fire. It's up and down, people contacting me saying, I can tell you how to be a bestseller. I can tell you how to make sure that you sell 100,000 books. I can make sure that this becomes, you can transform this book into a series, on and on and on. And somebody said, what was your point for the book? Like, why did you write it? I have to say, I wrote it because writing is joyful for me. Sometimes it's terrifying. And sometimes it brings out a piece of me that is like terror dancing with joy. But I find a piece of myself that I would never have experienced. Would I like you to read it? I'd very much like you to read the book. But why? Well, because I hope it brings you joy. And I hope you communicate that with me. That's the point. And when I let go of this need to measure, something transforms. We all, most of us, grew up with grades, right? You go to school and you're going to get a grade. You're going to get a report card. My dog went to daycare and she got a report card. She plays well with other dogs. This is a good thing to know. I want to know that she's socialized well. Thank God they didn't give her a grade. Because then what? What if she got a B in plays well with others? Is there something, I'm supposed to get her a tutor? Like I need a dog tutor so that she can get an A and plays well with others? No, it means she's doing good, right? She's in there. But we have lives that revolve around that. How many followers do you have? How many listeners do you have? How many people read your book? What grade did you get? What review did you get? And while those are interesting, and while in some ways they're important, I want us to think about other things that perhaps drive our lives. When you read something, Have you had this experience? You went to a movie that was super highly rated and you wanted to leave halfway through? That's why often I don't go to the movies, because that ends up being my experience. Have you read a book that didn't have anything special in terms of a rating? It wasn't a bestseller, it wasn't whatever, but oh my gosh, it transported you. That meant you were engaged in your own life experience about being present and being joyful. And it is that personal engagement that transforms our life. Yes, we need meaning and purpose, and yes, we need goals, yes, we need relationship, we need all of that. But when that is peppered, spiced with joy, it has true meaning. So I'd love to consider this conversation, continue this conversation, with you for the next 2 weeks. Because my show is every other week, and I've got a surprise for you in 2 weeks. It's going to be really wild fun, and again, with this kind of format. But I'd like to know what you'd like more of. A little more astrology, a little more magic. Jupiter's in Aquarius. Do you want to know what that means? The North and South nodes have moved into Scorpio and Taurus. Do you want to know what that means? Do you want a little more Kabbalistic? Do you want to know how to write a book? Where can I help inspire you? Because this show is truly about inspiring a Renaissance of spirit in everyone who listens, including me, because I have no idea half the time what's going to come out of my mouth. So what would you like? And to do that, I need you to chat with me. Here's how you can do it. Go to elisarobin.com. That's my website. You'll have my email right there. Go to Facebook. You can find me on Elisa Robin. It's my main page. You can go to the Dr. Elisa Robin Show. That's a great place to give me ideas and notions. You can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Instagram, and you can find me on LinkedIn, and you can communicate with me in any of those places. And what I'm hoping is that you are inspired to help me inspire you, and together we move forward in 2022 away from this sort of blurry past 2 years that we've had. And that perhaps joy is an answer to bridging the disparate notions and commitments that people have made, attachments people have made to feel safe. Maybe it's joy that brings us together in a sense of safety. Okay, so believe it or not, I have talked to you and you've listened to me. This is the Dr. Lisa Show on KUHS Denver The Stream. I am followed by an amazing music show, and so you have to stay tuned to the station. Again, please get in touch with me. Please give me your thoughts, okay? Does that sound like I'm begging? No, I'm inspiring. Let's do it that way. Maybe I'm trying to be seductive. I will tell you I have some free Kindle copies of my book, and if you'd like a free Kindle copy, go to my website, sign up, and send me an email. Or go to the Dr. Lisa Show and like the page, and then send me an email that says, hey, I did. Can I have a free Kindle copy? The Kindle copies, and I don't have free hard copies, but I can send you with your email a free Kindle copy of the book that I joyfully wrote. And what I wish for you this week, this is what I want to leave you with. This is really what I want to leave you with. I want you to stay inspired. I want you to know that joy exists in the world. And I want you to hang on to each of those moments, because they will fill you with hope that the world is okay, and that there's so much more in the world than just the bad news that we hear every day. Get off social media. Go outside. Read this book. Immerse yourself in color and abundance and freedom and transcendence and all of these elements. Pops of joy, surprises, synchronicity. Those things happen when we're open. And so, I hope I've ignited a little spark within you, and maybe a bit of magic. And until I talk with you again in 2 weeks, let your inner flame help you stay well, stay joyful, and stay inspired.